And we actually have Constantin Lungu is going to be joining us now to go through his session on SQL-Native transformations. So he's actually going to take us on a short session, but it's going to be end-to-end on the usage of Dataform for SQL transformations in BigQuery. So once he finishes up there, we're going to actually go and do another short Q&A session. So please continue to put in your questions into the chat and into the Q&A. And remember that we're going to be sharing all of these sessions afterward. And yeah, so take it away, Constantin. And thank you, everybody. It's been really great up till now.
Hi, everyone. Hope you had interesting sessions until now. Next, we're going to talk about Dataform. First, a few words about me. I'm Constantin. I've been working in the data domain for around 12 years, 6 of them with the Google Cloud Platform and specifically BigQuery. So the topic of this practical exercise would be to discover what Dataform is, what it can do for the data teams and various functions around it. And let's dive right in. So if you want to follow along or discover the code presented in this exercise, feel free to check it out on GitHub. It's called Postcard Company Dataform. Here you would have all the instructions on how to replicate the data model, generate the data, and set it up. And feel free to open an issue if you want anything changed. So back to Dataform. So what is Dataform? So Dataform was originally a standalone company and a standalone tool that worked across multiple cloud systems. You could think of it as, let's say, an alternative or a competitor to dbt. In 2020, it was acquired by Google and brought on the Google Cloud Platform. And over time, over the course of the years, it was fully integrated. And now it's one of the offerings that come pre-built with BigQuery and GCP in general. What it does, it allows you to do SQL-based transformations, all native in BigQuery. We're talking about tables, views, and all the other operations that you can define in SQL. If we were to draw a comparison with dbt, we would think about dbt using Jinja templating, whereas Dataform uses JavaScript. So let's look at our working scenario for today. We have an imaginary company selling postcards across Europe. And of course, they sell their data, sell the postcards directly, but also through various resellers. So in the process, they collect quite a bit of data about products, data about customers, and they want to make sense out of it. They are used BigQuery and Google Cloud in general. So they have a lot of queries, views, SQL logic around and want to make some sense out of it, build some comprehensive reporting that would help them find new business opportunities, understand where their sales are doing better. So we have a data model, so one fact table and multiple dimensions. So fact, sales, channel, geography, product, customer, and sales agent. This data is generated and uploaded to a Parquet file in Google Cloud Storage. So we're going to see how Dataform can help us with this task. The interesting part about Dataform is that we can both use the IDE of our choice, but also the UI provided by BigQuery Studios, also the website. Let's look at the anatomy of the BigQuery Dataform project in Visual Studio Code. So in Visual Studio Code, you can see that we have the definitions. Interesting to see, we have the SQLX file. So think of it as expanded or extended SQL. This basically SQL mixed with some JavaScript inside. We have a configuration block on top and something that resembles SQL in the body. In the configuration block, we defined tags, which are basically logical groupings of multiple files, multiple actions. The type, which can be a table, a view, or an operation. That basically means every type of other SQL that you might have. The schema, which corresponds to the BigQuery schema, a description, and a few other things that we're going to walk you through in the coming minutes. Looking at the body of the file, we can see that there is where you would expect a view or a table, you find this ref. Ref is short for reference. It's basically an address that helps you identify where this is reading from. So it's a placeholder for the table or view that we want to read from. First part is the schema, again corresponding to the BigQuery schema. Second part is the name of the table or view. In this case, this corresponds also to the file name. The way what it gives to us is the ability to work with an abstraction, not just the exact table name in that particular environment, but also it can refer to a source that is not defined in here in our Dataform code. In our exercise, we are basically reading the data from Google Cloud Storage, Parquet files. In here, we have an operation. So again, another type of Dataform file. In here, we're defining an external table that we can use as the landing area for our data. What else? We have a workflow settings. This is a core configuration file where we put things like the default project, the default dataset, default location, and some variables that we can inject into the Dataform context. Now, Dataform has a CLI, and it's even a JavaScript library. So it has a CLI that enable us to run these both here with our in the terminal, but also in the CI/CD context if you need. What else? So we read the data from our defined sources. Then we pass through a staging layer where we can process them, and then finally load them to the facts and dimensions. Common task would be, of course, to in case of big tables, to load the data incrementally. In order to do that, Dataform has this particular type incremental. What it gives us is the ability to incrementally extract the data. It plays along together with the unique key declaration in here. That would So when we specify incremental with the transaction ID as the unique key, that means that transaction ID uniquely identifies each row, both in the source and the target. So it's basically the grain of the table that we want to incrementally load. If we were not to specify the unique key, that means we would just be inserting, and of course, it would be accumulating all those rows. Otherwise, with the unique key here, it would basically compile to a merge statement. Also notice the BigQuery block in here. The BigQuery block is basically dictating how would the target table be configured. In this case, the fact that it be partitioned by the bot date. Of course, you can add here the clustering by one or more columns. Now, looking more at the body of the of this pipeline, we can see an interesting thing. It's this part of the code. What this does is basically calling out a JavaScript function in one of our files. So we need to find it. That's here. So you can see helpers.js. So the problem we're trying to solve here is that we're going to have some repetitive code, just some logic to generate a composite the surrogate key. So we're going to take multiple columns and try to create one key out of them. So what this allows us is to call this from each file, and based on this two arguments we're passing to create one customer key. Also, back to the incremental, notice here how we have another block of JavaScript. Basically, we're saying when this is incremental, the first part of the first part in these backticks would execute. So when we're running incrementally, we will be checking only getting the rows that have the loaded timestamp greater than the last known loaded timestamp. And self just means that it's the current table, so itself basically. So this facilitates us loading the data incrementally into this table. You can of course specify the table or the view name directly in here, but that's not really recommended, because working across multiple environments, it might it just might lose some of the benefits that you have, and be able to trace the connections between all these tables. What else? So apart from defining views, tables, and any other types of operations, there are the assertions and tests. So what are assertions? Assertions are just a way for us to verify that some of the conditions that we don't want to be happening are not happening. So that is, let's say, having a negative sales amount, or having a one of the let's say prices being lower than a particular threshold. So it's a data test that we can do both as a standalone file, but also inside the config block of each pipeline. There is also the tests. Tests are basically unit tests, where we can control both the input as a fixture, and tests that we're indeed getting the expected output provided this input. Okay, now you might ask, how does this talk to BigQuery? So what we're using here is a credential file which only has the project ID and our location. And this is connected using the BigQuery application default login. Now, I previously mentioned the CLI. So the CLI is just an npm package that we can install. Now I'm going to see, for example, we want to run the tests. There's Dataform tests. There is the Dataform compile, which of course runs the compilation checks, and you have Dataform run, which can run a particular tag, a particular action, or a set of actions. In this case, we're going to run the assertions. So we're going to test some things about the data, that the channel is valid, the customer is valid, the commission percentage is valid, and some other assumptions that are kind of the cornerstones of what we know about this data. Now, of course, we can also do pretty much the same thing with the BigQuery UI. The way it all works, we connect the Git repository through one of the provided options, and then we can create a development workspace. So think of a development workspace as a Git branch. Basically, one workspace in here is one Git branch, and when you're going to create and push the particular workspace, it's going to be reflected in the Git repository that you've connected. What else to be seen here are releases and configurations. Release configurations that would basically be SQL compilations of our project. So it would go over all that JavaScript mixed with SQL and compile it to actually proper SQL. That could happen on a schedule, but also based on some events, either manual, but also when we, let's say, push something to that Git repository. You can see here that we can override it and pass any variable that we need. Workflow configurations, on the other hand, they're like ways where we can run particular, so it's the orchestration part. Here we can set up a schedule for a subset or by tag, by action, to a particular schedule. So here I basically set up a schedule that would run the actions that have the tag schedule daily at 7 a.m. UTC. It can of course run with so the proper way to run it is with a dedicated service account that has only the necessary privileges. So in here we've set up the schedule daily to run. We can there's a separate tab for logs. Here we can see all the actions that have run based on our schedule. That is on the actions, how much time it took. If you want to dive into the details, we can click and check. Here we would see how much time it took, what was the job ID, and the actual SQL that it was compiled. In case of errors, of course, we would get the errors as well and be able to debug. Back to the development workspace. So I just created one workspace so we can see how the IDE works I'm going to have to refresh because it seems stuck. So that's basically the IDE. We can do more or less the same things here, but we do locally. There's also a nice compiled graph for to explore how all these individual actions relate to each other and how the data flows, basically from source to the fact what assertions we have about the data as well. You have an execution tab where you can see the executions that are triggered from this particular branch. So this can allow for a team of multiple people working on pretty much the same code base, but in a branched way. You should, of course, know that so here we have the default branch main, but it might be that a different branch is a different environment, like dev and test. And there's multiple ways you can set it up. It can either be a different project, and each project would have a default branch, prod for main, dev for dev, and staging or the integration. Or it could be for smaller teams, of course, just a simpler setup with one project and different branches pointing to the same environment, but different branches that represent different environments. Overall, as part of Dataform workflows, you can of course come and run the things directly from here. If you want, you can. So let's say I'll pick something that is quicker. If you click run in here, it could immediately run the SQL that it compiles, and very interesting here. You can see on the right, it gives you the compiled queries. So basically, this when compiled becomes this SQL that you can even copy and run by yourself if you need to. If we were to say make an error here somewhere, you would see that the compilation check would just immediately say there's a problem and try to help us, indicating where the problem happens. Okay, so let's talk about who Dataform is. So I've been using Dataform for several years now in big and small context with a lot of data, but with big projects and small projects. I would say what's good about it? Well, first of all, it's free. It's there in the platform. It's also managed. So that means you don't need to really have a separate person, just one less problem to worry about. It's tightly integrated with BigQuery. So over the course of the year, of the past years, there were some hiccups initially, but now in the past few years, it's been very, very stable. So it's, in my view, battle tested and very dependable. Definitely, if your data lives in BigQuery and your team is comfortable with Git workflows, and you want something that's really SQL native, but not too demanding in terms of the overhead, I think it's a good recommendation. In terms of limitations, and of course, it's only SQL in there. There is JavaScript that you can use to get around the common limitations, but it can get messy pretty fast. There's no Python transformations in there. With regards to triggering external processes, there is a workaround. We can use like a BigQuery remote function, which can trigger Cloud Run or HTTP or something like that. Now, more general points would be the community is pretty small. The docs are pretty thin. Some of the, even the behavior in the code here that you see, you might not be able to find it in docs. I'm thinking in particular about unit tests. So it was a bit of a trial and error to understand how those work. The feature cadence is not as fast as it is for like DBT or SQL Mesh or something like that. It's clear that those platforms might have a larger ecosystem, whereas we would rely on these JavaScript logic that we can, of course, now it's suddenly easier to write with AI tools. But when you think about it in a general perspective, I think it's pretty good value that you're getting for basically free, and a good place to start if you're already within the BigQuery context. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I would be delighted to answer them.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Constantin. That was really, really great. I think, we got to hear a lot today about new features, about things that are already existing within BigQuery, et cetera. And I think you put a really, really good, really good addition on that by talking about Dataform. A lot of people might not be, familiar with Dataform at all, or even know that it's available or integrated with BigQuery. I know we had that question. So we have time for probably one, maybe two questions. So there was the one that we had in the chat. A couple of people were asking about, what are the strongest or most compelling arguments to use Dataform over any other tool, right, that does similar things like SQL transformations. And even another one about where DAG comes into the picture with Dataform. What I want to know is to of course answer that, but even before that, Constantin, into, let's say, somebody that's new to BigQuery, maybe using the solution, has run some queries, done some different analytics use cases on there. Where does Dataform actually come in? When do I come and say I actually need to use Dataform to make some transformations?
Right. Thank you, Lior, for the question. So whenever in a big organization or a small one, or just when you're the solo in the team, you would write quite a lot of SQL and get stored it in various scripts, views. So it tends to get messy pretty fast. You forget why did you make a particular change, or somebody else did, and you don't have visibility into that. So you definitely want to have it source controlled in some shape or form. And Dataform is just a very simple, straightforward, and free way to do that. So whenever you interact with SQL code and do so on a daily basis, I think the seeds for that need are already planted.
Absolutely. And so that being said, to Shake's question in the chat there, what is a reason, I guess, that we should be considering Dataform over other tools that are available on the market? I know you were mentioning some of the pros and cons. What's the most compelling reason, if you had to summarize it for our audience here?
Compelling for me is the integration, the lack of maintenance as such. The fact that it's managed by Google just helps me focus somewhere else. And of course, the fact that it doesn't cost anything. I would say it could have been better is, of course, on the developer experience. As I've mentioned, some corners you need to find by yourself. So it's not the most polished experience, but at the low cost of free, I mean, I would take it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Constantin. It was a really, really great session. We've of course shared the GitHub repo that you were following there. And so thank you for the session today. And we're going to move on to a session with Orion. But really appreciate your time.